To begin placing joints inside this character, we're not going to be working through the viewport. That's because if we tried, Maya would just place the joint somewhere off in space behind where we clicked, and we need more precision than that. So we'll mostly be working through the 4 view and using these different orthographic views to place our joints. To start off, I'm going to go into the side view by pressing space in there, and we'll begin creating our skeleton through here. You'll notice that through this view, it's a little hard to see his lower back where we want to place these joints. So to remedy that, we want to go into the X-ray mode by clicking this icon here. Additionally, you can also use the wireframe view, which can help you see a little bit easier sometimes, but since there's a lot of geometry in here, it makes it a little confusing, so I'm going to keep that off. It may help in other circumstances though. Another thing we want to turn on is this X-ray joint option. And we do that so as we place these joints, we can see them straight through the model. They actually appear as if they were in front of the model instead. And it all just makes it easier to work. To begin, we're going to create all the joints that appear along the center of this character. So from the pelvis, we're going to move all the way up to his head. So let's start out placing the pelvis joint. I'm going to select the Joints tool in the Rigging tab. And somewhere around here is where I'd imagine his pelvis is. Next up, we're going to create a root joint. And we may modify this later, but for now I'm just going to place it off to the side here. Next up, we begin the spine. So at the very base of the spine, we're going to leave a joint right about there. And now the next spine joint, we're going to make midway between where the rib cage starts and our last joint. So right about in the middle there. Next up, I'm going to place the joint at the bottom of the rib cage. And from there, we don't need any more spine joints, because if you notice on yourself, on a human, there's not a whole lot of bending that goes on in this part of the spine. There's a little bending, but it's not enough to justify a whole row of spinal joints through here. So instead, we're going to jump right up to where the shoulder is, place that guy, and then from there we're going to go to the base of the neck and put one there. That way we can place another joint right behind the earlobe there for the head movement and head rotation. Next up, I'm going to create another joint way up here at the top of the head, so that we can later have some hair movement from there. And I'm going to hit enter. From here I'm going to hit the G key and select where we put our head joint and create the joint for the jaw from there. And the jaw begins pivoting around here, kind of where his beard is there. So just around there. I'm going to hit enter. And notice how I'm not adding an extra joint at the tip of his chin, because it's not necessary. We don't need a bone running through the jaw for there to be any movement there. Everything in the jaw is going to be controlled by this one joint here. Now that we have the basic center joints placed, we can go back through and make sure we didn't mess anything up. And it's really easy to modify these joints positions, so don't worry if you happen to not get it perfect the first time. All you have to do is select the joint and hold the D key down and move it around that way. If you don't press D, you'll notice that you move the parent along with all its children, and that's not always what you want to see. So let me quickly just run through here and fine-tune some of these spine joints. They might not all be perfect right now, but they can all be adjusted here. Maybe the neck is actually... This guy's got quite a thick neck, so maybe I should put it inward a little bit. This head, I think, looks okay. Maybe this jaw could come down a little bit. I don't know, maybe this is where his jaw is, where it hinges from. And the hair, just like the jaw, doesn't need that bone sticking up there. Everything's going to rotate from here. So that's that. Now if we go back into our perspective mode, we can kind of see how we did. So if you do the same as we did with the other window and select the X-ray joints tool, we can now see within this guy he has the makings of a skeleton starting to go there. So now before we go any further, we need to name all these joints. That way they're easily referenced later on when we're rigging, and they can also be easily pinpointed inside the engine by anyone who wants to locate a specific joint for some reason. So we're going to start right at the beginning with our pelvis joint. I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to go up to the channel box in the top right here, and here you can see its name right down here. Currently it's called joint 1. That doesn't make any sense. We're going to call it pelv, JNT. And that's how I like to name things. You can name things however you like as long as there's a system involved. This is just something that I use that's very quick. Obviously it's pelvis joint is what it's abbreviating. So next up we have our soon-to-be root joint. And if you hit the up key and the down key on your keyboard, you can actually move up and down the chain. So from our root joint, I'll hit down, and I'll move up the spine chain to the first spine. So I'll do spine 1 joint. I'll hit enter. I'll hit down, and we get spine 2 joint. And I'll hit enter and down, and we got our spine 3 joint. And then moving up, we have a chest joint. Enter down, and I'm going to name this one the neck joint, because that'll be controlling the neck movement. Down again, we've reached the head joint. Down again, and we're on the hair joint. Now our up and downs tend to miss these little non sequitur joints, so I'm going to go back and just select the jaw joint by hand and say jaw joint. So there you have it. Everything's nice and named and organized. And if you go into the outliner by clicking this button over here, you can see that our joints are all named and they're all listed under their respected parents. And it's all very nice and easy to read, except for this is a D-pine 1 joint. I want to name that spine joint. I'll hit enter.